In a small operating room deep inside a quiet alley, the bright surgical light shone on the face of a woman seeking perfect beauty. But just a few minutes later, that dream turned into a nightmare with no escape. The doctor, holding the scalpel, was not who she thought, and the anesthetic flowing into her body was not meant for humans. As her heartbeat slowed, no one called for help. No one stopped. The surgery ended, but the patient never woke up. Her name was Clara Jennings, 32 years old. A modern woman, confident at work, polite in communication, yet carrying a hidden obsession. Every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't see an ordinary face, but only the flaws that no one else but she herself could notice. Cheeks not high enough, a slightly low nose bridge, faint wrinkles around the corners of her mouth. All of these made Clara believe she had never been beautiful enough. That obsession grew day by day, slowly eroding her self-esteem. Then one morning, while scrolling online, Clara came across a bright advertisement on her screen. Perfect beauty in just one day. No pain, no risk, no waiting. The before and after photos appeared like magic. The fake testimonials, the radiant smiles of the clients made her believe that she too could change. She didn't hesitate. With just a few clicks, she booked the surgery she believed would turn her life to a new chapter. Clara spent the entire following week imagining her post-surgery self. She would be more confident, no longer afraid of cameras, no longer avoiding mirrors. She believed beauty would make her more loved, more noticed. But what she didn't know, that clinic had already been placed on a medical watch list for using anesthetics of unknown origin. The clinic's owner, a man who had his medical license revoked, continued to operate secretly under a new name. And Clara, she walked through that door hoping to find herself, not knowing that she would never walk out again. On the day of the surgery, Clara came alone. No family, no friends, no one knew where she was. She wore a simple white dress, her face covered by a mask and her eyes shining with hope that when she stepped out of this room, she would become a more perfect version of herself. The clinic was tucked deep inside a narrow alley, its sign bright but old. The smell of disinfectant mixed with cheap perfume made the air stifling. The man who greeted her was named Evan Cole, a doctor once famous in the cosmetic field a few years earlier. He smiled, shook her hand, his voice gentle and reassuring. Clara had no idea that his medical license had been revoked after a complication nearly killed another patient on the operating table. But in this small room, no one checked credentials, no one asked questions. Only the promise of perfect beauty was repeated like a mantra. Clara was taken into the operating room. The bright light shone directly on her face, making her squint. The nurse leaned down, placed a hand on her shoulder, and whispered softly, "Relax, you're going to be beautiful." Then a syringe was inserted into her arm, and the anesthetic began to spread through her veins. She felt her body grow heavy, her eyelids closing, and the last image she saw was Dr. Cole's face, his eyes empty and cold. Clara didn't know that moment would also be the last time she would ever see the light. The air in the operating room was eerily silent. The pale fluorescent light cast down on Clara's face, making her skin look even paler. The sound of machines hummed steadily, mixed with her slow breathing as the anesthetic began to spread through her body. But what no one told her was that the drug had never been approved for human use. It was a cheap sedative, commonly used in veterinary medicine, extremely potent and capable of causing cardiac arrest within minutes. As the needle was pulled out, Clara shuddered slightly, then her whole body relaxed. Dr. Evan Cole leaned down, signaling the nurse to prepare the scalpel. He was cold, as if this were just another routine procedure. But only a few minutes later, the heart monitor began to beep strangely. The numbers on the screen fluctuated erratically, then started to drop. Clara's breathing weakened, her lips turning pale. The nurse looked up in panic, her voice trembling. Her heartbeat is dropping too fast. Instead of stopping, Cole gritted his teeth and ordered them to continue. He was afraid of losing another client, afraid of being exposed, afraid of having to return the money he had already taken. The sound of the monitor grew faster, then suddenly stopped. A deadly silence filled the room. Clara lay motionless, her eyes closed, her skin beginning to turn bluish. No one called for help. No one ran outside for assistance. They just stood there, staring at her body, unable to believe what had just happened. The nurse broke down in tears, while Cole stepped back, his hands trembling but his eyes still empty. Clara Jennings, the woman who came to find beauty, was now nothing more than a cold body on the operating table. The air in the operating room was heavy, suffocating. Clara had lain motionless for over an hour, her skin pale green, her lips turning purple. The nurse stood in the corner, her hands trembling, repeatedly asking, "We have to do something, right?" But Dr. Cole remained silent, his blank eyes fixed on the body. He couldn't believe she was dead. He kept thinking it might just be a side effect of the anesthesia, that she would wake up. They waited. 10 minutes, 30 minutes, then hours passed in absolute silence. But Clara never opened her eyes again. When the clock struck midnight, fear began to fill the room. Cole knew everything had spun out of control. If he called the police, he would be arrested immediately. If he called the hospital, they would discover the banned anesthetic. The pressure drove him to make a decision he would later call the biggest mistake of my life. He ordered the nurse to take Clara's body down to the storage room filled with old equipment boxes and medical waste. They wrapped her body in a white sheet, dragging it through the dark hallway, leaving streaks of blood smeared across the floor. Afterward, Cole sat at his desk forging medical records. In them, he wrote, "The patient left before fully recovering." No signature, no medical certification, just a few cold lines to hide a crime. The next morning, the clinic reopened, welcoming new clients. No one knew a woman had died there the night before. But outside, Clara's friends began to worry. She didn't answer her phone, didn't show up at work, and her apartment lights stayed on for 3 nights straight. On the 3rd day, they called the police to report her missing. And from that moment, the secret inside the operating room began to crack. When the police raided the clinic, the air inside was terrifyingly silent. Flashlights swept across every corner of the room, shining on the stained white walls and the lingering smell of disinfectant in the air. On the operating table, the marks of alcohol wipes were still wet. Something had just happened here, but every trace seemed to have been hastily erased. The cabinets were empty. There were no patient records, no bottles of anesthetic, no surgery logs. Even the security cameras had been completely removed, leaving only jagged cut wires behind. However, amid the dust and leftover pieces of tape, a young investigator found a small object lying under the operating table. A silver bracelet engraved with 2 letters, CJ. His hand trembled. Those were the initials of Clara Jennings, the only piece of evidence proving she had been here, lying on this very cold table. From that small bracelet, the entire case began to unfold. Police traced bank transactions, uncovering undeclared cash payments Dr. Cole had received from clients. They discovered a list of 11 other women who had visited the same clinic, all of whom had either vanished without a trace or been hospitalized after surgery with severe complications. Clara was only the final victim and the one who brought every secret to light. The testimonies gradually revealed a horrifying truth. For years, Cole had been performing countless illegal surgeries in this very room, using veterinary anesthetics to cut costs. He believed no one would ever find out, that every mistake could be hidden behind a fake medical file. But that small silver bracelet, Clara's last birthday gift from her mother, became her final voice, dragging the entire crime into the light. In the interrogation room, the white light shone directly on the cold face of Dr. Evan Cole. He sat still, his hands clasped together, showing neither fear nor remorse. The investigator looked straight into his eyes and asked, "Why didn't you call for help when the patient's heart stopped?" Cole smirked, replying softly, almost in a whisper, "She was already dead." That voice carried no emotion, just an empty justification for an act he knew was unforgivable. But the truth left the entire room in silence. The autopsy revealed that Clara hadn't died immediately. She still had a chance. If she had been resuscitated within the first 5 minutes, she could have survived. The words, "she was already dead," became his own confession, proving that he had abandoned a life waiting to be saved. During the following hours of interrogation, Cole showed no remorse. He repeated only one sentence: "People want to be beautiful. I just gave them what they wanted." His tone was flat, as if it had all been just a small professional mistake. No one in the room could understand how a man who once swore to save lives could say such words. The investigators opened the file, reading aloud the list of women who had been his patients, 12 in total, all severely harmed, some never recovered. As they left the interrogation room, a young officer whispered, "He's not a doctor. He's a murderer in a white coat." And in that moment, everyone understood. Clara didn't just die because of the anesthetic, but because of the cold cruelty of a man who had forgotten the meaning of medicine. News of Dr. Evan Cole's case spread across the United States within hours. Television, newspapers, social media all reported on the deadly clinic hidden in a narrow alley in the middle of the city. They called it the Clara Jennings cosmetic disaster. Images of the sealed operating room, the blood-stained surgical table, and the once bright sign now being taken down sent chills through viewers. Police stood before the cameras announcing that Cole had been arrested and charged with illegal medical practice and manslaughter. When he stepped out of the courthouse, flashing lights illuminated the emotionless face of the man who was once called a doctor. No tears, no apology, no regret. He only lowered his head, his lips moving with words someone nearby heard. She knew the risks. But on the other side, in a small suburban home, Clara's mother sat quietly before her daughter's framed photo. She gently brushed the picture, her eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "You just wanted to be a little more beautiful," she whispered. "Just a little." The words trembled in the empty room, where the scent of dried roses still lingered. Justice had come, but it could never bring Clara back. The newspapers eventually fell silent. People moved on to the next story. Only one thing remained, the small bracelet engraved with the letters CJ, the only object found beneath the operating table, a reminder that beauty sometimes can kill. The sound of a heartbeat echoed slowly, then stopped completely. The screen went dark, leaving only the narrator's voice, calm and cold. Behind every perfect face lies a story that isn't beautiful. But as the voice faded, viewers could still feel a lingering unease, not only about the death of Clara Jennings, but about the distorted obsession of modern society, where beauty is sometimes traded for life itself. Clara's story was not just a medical case. It was a warning to those seeking perfection in their own reflection. She only wanted to feel more confident, to be more loved. Yet that very desire led her to a place with no way back. The brightly lit operating room that day became the place she took her last breath. Not because of fate, but because of human greed and indifference. The case shocked the public, forcing authorities to review a wave of illegal cosmetic clinics. But even though justice was served, even though Dr. Cole paid with 15 years behind bars, nothing could give Clara back the life that should have continued. Her family lost a daughter forever. Her friends lost the smile that once lit up every room. The story ended, but its echoes remain. In the glare of surgical lights, in the words of those who speak in the name of beauty, and in the eyes of those staring at their own reflection, wondering if they are good enough. Because sometimes, in the pursuit of perfection, people lose the most precious thing of all, themselves. And if you believe true beauty must come from safety and humanity, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think there are limits people should never cross just to look better? Share your feelings, and let's talk about the fine line between aesthetics and life. And if you want to keep exploring mysterious, chilling, and true stories from the world of medicine, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single secret file in the Doctor's Secret Files. Every week, we'll bring you a new story where truth, guilt, and human obsession intertwine into the coldest records in medical history.